Chairman Tanner, Ranking Member Brady, and members of the Subcommittee on Trade, thank you for inviting the U.S. Chamber of Commerce to testify today at this hearing on U.S. policy towards Cuba. My name is Myron Brilliant. It's actually one of the few times I've been before a committee that no one has commented on that last name. But I am Senior Vice President for International Affairs at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. It's always a pleasure to be before this important committee. I want to make 3 points here today. First, our ultimate goal is a complete lifting of the embargo with Cuba. This is a long-standing policy of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. Second, we know it's going to take some time. It won't happen overnight. However, we do think it's important to take incremental steps such as those proposed by Congressman Peterson and Moran in H.R. 4645, which would be good for America's economy and, most importantly, great for America's values. And point 3, we believe Congress and the administration have to work together to provide the political space for real reform and must move on H.R. 4645. We urge you to do so. I'd like to take the rest of my time to describe the rationale for the Chamber's position. Getting U.S. Cuba policy right matters. It matters first because our response will send a signal to the wider world about American values and how we help neighbors who have suffered oppression and poverty under a dictator. From the business community's viewpoint, U.S. policy toward Cuba is out of date and ineffective, a hangover from the Cold War. The reality is that unilateral sanctions do not work. The last 50 years of our embargo against Cuba have proven that. Rather than encouraging Cuba to democratize, the embargo has made a martyr out of a dictator and actually helped prop up the communist regime. No one seriously argues that the Cuban dictatorship could have withstood 5 decades of free trade, free markets, and free enterprise, powered by its own entrepreneurial citizens. It's on the basis of these values, these core American values, that we support closer economic engagement with Cuba. We are convinced that we need a different approach. In our view, additional commercial and people-to-people contacts would facilitate a transition to a more open society and an economy providing greater freedom and opportunity for the Cuban people. Prior to the embargo, the United States accounted for nearly 70% of Cuba's international trade. Cuba was the 7th largest market for U.S. exporters, particularly important for America's farm producers. The embargo forced Cuba to seek out new sources for its domestic consumption. American farmers, businesses, and workers are therefore missing significant economic opportunities that are eagerly being taken up by others, including our trading partners, as others have mentioned. In 2000, the embargo was partly eased by the Trade Sanctions Reform and Export Enhancement Act. The Act permits the sale of agricultural exports with a variety of restrictions and licensing requirements, including cash and advance payments via third-country banks. Despite this heavy regulation, U.S. exports to Cuba rose from less than 1 million to 392 million in 2004. And U.S. agricultural products captured 42% of the Cuban market. In 2005, the Bush administration tightened payment terms even further, and as a result, U.S. agricultural sales to the island decreased by nearly 15% in the following 2 years. As Secretary Block and others have mentioned, given the restrictions, the majority of current agricultural trade with Cuba is done by multinational companies, as small and medium-sized enterprises are deterred by the complexity of the regulations. Removing restrictions on trade with Cuba would help SMEs by giving them access to a much-needed market in these difficult times. Easing restrictions on already legal trade is not enough, however. Lifting the travel ban is vital and will create jobs in the U.S. It will have an impact on direct investment in tourism, infrastructure such as hotels, shops, and cruise ship ports for Cuba. It could help thousands of Cubans to improve their standard of living and their economic independence from the state, a goal we should all share. Cuba's hospitality sector pays significantly higher wages than other sectors. Growth in the job market, higher wages, increased access to hard currency for the Cuban people in the form of tips and direct payments from tourists will improve the quality of life of many Cubans. And additionally, Cuba's small entrepreneurs, artists, taxi drivers, family restaurants, and people who rent rooms in their homes will benefit from the influx of American visitors. So lifting the travel ban is a necessity. It will not only help the Cuban people, it will help the American people to serve as ambassadors of democracy and freedom, and American businesses to spread the values of entrepreneurship and free enterprise. In the interest of time, I will not cover all the details of H.R. 465, but I will mention that that there have been studies, including by Texas A&M University, that shows that if we did pass that act, that we could increase up to $365 million in annual sales of U.S. goods, and that could have a total economic impact of $1.1 billion and create 6,000 new jobs in the United States. Cuba's poverty is the direct result of a half-century of Marxist mismanagement. The embargo allows the regime to blame it on Washington. It's time to eliminate this pretext for the Cuban government's resistance to positive change. As the administration seeks new initiatives to increase U.S. exports, taking even the simplest steps available, such as improving pending free trade agreements and easing the terms for agricultural sales to Cuba, represent a no-cost measure that will help create hundreds of thousands of American jobs. Business executives understand that real change is often incremental, as with these proposals. Yet commerce has the power to transform societies. The best path forward would be to lift the embargo, but measures taken in that direction are well worth taking, and we urge the Congress and administration to act now. Once again, I appreciate the opportunity to testify and welcome the questions. Thank you.